Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hello, thank you for listening, whether it's on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, wherever you podcast. I want to start with a little story about my friend Michelle. I've known Michelle since the mid-1990s. We have both worked in radio. We both hail from Augusta, Georgia. We both love animals. We share lots of animal memes and videos, things that are, really cute like that on social media. And when we catch up and cross paths every once in a while, very friendly. We like each other. It's all fantastic. Michelle is a very nice person. We have a common friend, Dale. Dale is a very nice person. And the three of us, we all have a lot of common friends that, having all worked together and worked in the same industry together and worked in the same city together, we just have a lot of mutual friends. Nice people. Something ugly just comes out of people every once in a while. And listen, I'm not immune to it. I probably share some things on social media that may seem ugly to a MAGA voter. I think in some respects, we do this, they too, I too, in response to ugliness, and it doesn't make it better, two wrongs don't make a right. But there are some things that you just see on social media that are so ugly that you just wonder about the person. Like, that's not really who you are. You know what I mean? Michelle shared a screen grab of what I guess is like a Zillow or a Redfin map, one of the home for sale apps where you can see what's newly listed or what's coming on the market. She shared, I don't know the source of it. She shared a screen grab that says, homes put up for sale in just the last 14 days in D.C. And D.C. being the fifth largest, I think, metropolitan area in the United States, there's always a lot of home for sales. It's the number of new homes for sale that I guess is of particular notice. Now, I don't know if this number is unusually high, low, or average. I actually work in real estate, so I do have some insights into how DC home sales are going, but not much. We don't get February numbers until the end of February, right? Michelle shared this. Homes put up for sale in just the last 14 days in D.C., as if this number is an unusually high number. Under that premise, with the headline, Getting the Hell Out of Doge, celebrating this. Our mutual friend Dale, like roaches when the lights come on. I mean, these are like, first of all, if this is an unusually high number, and this is an unusually high number due to the federal workforce layoffs in recent weeks, I know these people. I know Michelle. I know Dale. I know people who are affected by federal government job increases and layoffs. All good people. All people who, if they knew each other, would look out for each other. Really, honestly and truly. That's exactly who Michelle and Dale are. And also, I would imagine a lot of the people who might have their homes for sale showing up in little red dots on that map. It makes me question what the hell is going on in our society when perfectly good people can look at a heat map of homes for sale in Metro Atlanta and celebrate it like they just won a war and the opposition is in full retreat. Ukrainians, yes, sure, absolutely. Celebrate when the Russians are retreating. You should, Much like folks who were freed from the shackles of Nazism and Nazi Germany in World War II, the French should be celebrating when the tanks were rolling back out in full retreat, right? Michelle, Dale, celebrating because people's lives are being upended, having to put their house on the market. I'm sorry. There's something really sick about, if not the kind of people, what lies in those people who take delight in the upheaval of people losing their jobs through no fault of their own. I mean, sorry, but spare me your bullshit Christian values and limited government principles when you're literally taking glee in families having to pull up roots and relocate because of a narcissistic, grabbing sexual predator that eked out a 250,000 vote electoral college win and claims that this is all his doing by mandate. It's just ghoulish. I shared this screen grab, this meme, by the way, at Ron Show ATL on Facebook. And my initial reaction was I was so angry about this, like Friday night, Saturday morning, that what I said, I don't even mean when it comes to Michelle and Dale. And that also tells me I probably don't even mean it about the majority of MAGA. Seriously, think about that. Here's what I said. I said, you're just f***ing ghoulish. I can't be surprised to see MAGA Nimrods posting this kind of shit, though. Empathy was never your thing, MAGA, but you do you. And that ain't Michelle and that ain't Dale. They're not ghoulish people. I am surprised to see them posting this kind of shit because empathy actually is their thing. So what are we to do about that? What are we to do about MAGA seeming to think that any and everyone working in federal government is on the take, despite being more educated than their private sector counterparts, despite pulling in, on average, 75% less for a job than their private sector counterparts, for an entity that's already shrinking before Trump? It's actually shrunk comparable to our population growth. I question the heart, the soul, sometimes the Christianity. Yeah, I'll go toe to toe, face to face with someone who claims themselves to be a Christian, someone who espouses to be walking a life in Jesus' delight, who takes delight in human beings losing their jobs through no fault of their own. I mean, get bent. I'm sorry. Here's a story from Stacey Ramsey. She posted this on her Facebook account over the weekend. Stacey is a lovely young lady, a park ranger, who said, I lost my job yesterday, Friday, Valentine's Day. I received a notice of termination around 3 o'clock, then was immediately summoned to HQ to sign papers. I was locked out of my government account before I could print off the email. The decision to terminate was based on my probationary status. I was in the first year of a 4-year IRA-funded term position. The park had no say. They just received a list of 4 employees to terminate. Did those who made the decision know or care that the main objective of my position is to provide preventative search and rescue education to keep park visitors safe? Doubt it. Did they know that I was assisted with at least 20 SAR and a few recoveries over the last 5 years? Did they know I'm part of the Visitor and Resource Protection Division and that I spent my days on the front line looking out for the safety of park visitors? Did they know that I have worked in various roles in the park for 5 years, including my primary position of River Ranger, Upper District Fee Collector, Emergency Hire Interp at BPVC, and assisted the Concessions Division and Maintenance Divisions as well? I think that's at Buffalo. Is it Buffalo Park? Did they know that I stayed in that GS5 River Ranger job despite opportunities for more permanent positions because I loved looking out for the safety of people on the river? It's a calling of sorts. Did they know I spent countless hours picking up trash, probably at least 100 mesh bags full over the last 5 years? Did they know I spent countless hot summer days at Grinders Ferry, talking to campers and passing out mesh trash bags, and countless hot, dusty evenings at Gilbert attempting to control the chaos? Did they know that I truly love my job, that I wholeheartedly love the river, that the river is home to me? Stacey writes they had no idea. The park also lost the one and only interp staff at the Buffalo Point Visitor Center, the only fee collector for the Upper District, and one of only 3 maintenance staff in the Middle District. Tough times, she writes. Stacy's a lovely woman. Loved her job. Wasn't getting wealthy off of it. I don't even know how she voted. Do you? Does it matter? Does it sound like she had a job that was excessive or wasteful? Doesn't to me. And if I showed a photo of Stacy and told her story to Michelle and Dale, they'd probably not take glee in it. They certainly wouldn't to Stacy's face. And that's what troubles me. It troubles me that perfectly good people are taking glee in the misery of others that they don't even know. How many of those new home listings in D.C., by the way, might be Trump voters? Lifelong Republicans even. We'll never know. We have no way of knowing. Again, we have no idea what D.C. new listing numbers are going to look like for the month of February. It's not really the story, honestly. I do know that in January, new home listings in D.C. actually trailed the national average. They're up year over year, but they're up year over year across the country. And the numbers were higher in Metro Atlanta, for example, and the nation than in D.C. So who knows? Maybe they were just biding their time, waiting on this MAGA wave of job hemorrhagings to hit them. And maybe the month of February will show those numbers to be gaudy and audacious for the D.C. metro area. I don't know. I do know that in my line as a real estate agent, that you deal with people all the time who are having to suddenly put their house on the market. Unexpectedly or expectedly, who need to want to sell for top dollar so that they can get back all of the investment, the equity growth that they've enjoyed in that house. But if they have to sell within a short time frame, they're probably going to have to take a little bit of a haircut in that department too. And that's another effect. Never mind the upheaval, never mind the moving of kids and relocating and new friends and new schools in the middle of the school year. My friends Michelle and Dale are good people, and they wouldn't normally take joy in this, and it bothers me that they do now. It's The Ron Show. If you're new to the show, feel free to follow us on your preferred social media platform. I know a lot of you are on Blue Sky now. That's fine. I'm there. At Ron Show ATL. Twitter, X, yeah, I'm still there too. Instagram, Facebook, Threads. A common theme of the show here of late has been focusing on the term f around and find out, F-A-F-O. There's a lot of F-O happening in Trump country, and Georgia, a state that went for Trump in 2024, is finding out in some pretty painful ways. Governor Brian Kemp was asked a good bit about that at a sit-down interview with Politico in Munich last week, and I'll give you some audio from that Q&A in the next segment. I'm going to start with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's reporting from last Friday. Greg Bluestein, Drew Kahn with the, is it Drew Kahn? Drew Kahn with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, reporting that the Trump administration has denied Georgia Governor Brian Kemp's request to give local governments more time to apply for federal disaster assistance after Hurricane Helene. That's the Trump administration that did that, not the Biden administration. Gather your memes. What about California, Georgia? That's the Trump administration that did that to you. Hurricane Helene, the report goes, which struck the southeast last September, was one of the most destructive and deadly tropical storms in U.S. history, responsible for at least 219 deaths and almost $80 billion in damages. The storm caused an estimated $5.5 billion in damage to Georgia's agriculture and forestry sectors alone, according to estimates from the University of Georgia. Kemp had asked for an extension for debris removal and emergency protective measures. The feedback from FEMA reads, based on our review of all the information available, it has been determined that the increased level of funding you have requested is not warranted. That from Cameron Hamilton, acting administrator for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, in a letter to the governor. Kemp spokesman Garrison Douglas, they just blow this off. They said the governor's mid-year spending plan includes funding projected to cover the non-federal cleanup expenses that had been eligible for federal reimbursement. Now, y'all know I'm a Georgia boy. I love my state, love my Bulldogs. They didn't play so good for me Saturday. Drove with my roommate and his girlfriend, my guy. We went and watched that game, and Missouri handed their asses to them in the second half. I'm a Georgia boy. I love my home state. But can I just tell you, I'm not actually mad at the Trump administration for this response, and I'll tell you why. This is a little bit of finding out, red state, MAGA voter. Georgia receives more federal tax dollars than it sends to the federal government. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. Georgia is not like California in that regard. California, New York, Illinois, they send more federal tax dollars to the coffers than they get back from the federal government. In fact, a lot of the money that they send in gets diverted to red states to cover the deficiencies of those red states. Georgia's one of those states. And so the Trump administration just sort of said, and I think it's kind of one of those petty things. Oh, Brian Kemp? No, say no. I mean, do you think that landed in Trump's radar on his desk? Probably. So I'm going to translate for you what Kemp's spokesman, Garrison Douglas, said. The article reads, Garrison Douglas said the governor's mid-year spending plan includes funding projects to cover the non-federal cleanup expenses that had been eligible for federal reimbursement. In essence, oh yeah? Well, so what? We were going to put that in the budget anyway. But it would have been nice not to have had to do that, right? If you're a Georgian, you're thinking, but now that's going to come out of our budget surplus. The state's sitting on, I don't know what it is now. It was like $16 billion by the end of the session last General Assembly. It'll be less. Now, in sum total, the governor had asked for some $12.2 billion in federal assistance. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to get, or we're going to have to cover for $12.2 billion requested. A lot of that money actually did come to the state. But cities, counties, municipalities that are out there still doing debris cleanup beyond the, 45-day, 90-day window to do the debris cleanup, and any costs incurred in doing that, your local jurisdiction now is kind of hung out to dry as far as covering for that expense. And that is what Governor Brian Kemp says now through his spokesman, that the state is going to have to budget for and potentially just dip into its surplus to account for, because the Trump administration told Governor Brian Kemp, we know that the two of them are not friends, that the federal cavalry is not coming for your cities and towns and counties, Governor. Now, listen, I'd love to play the what-if game. What if this were President Kamala Harris being asked? What do you think she'd have said? I think we know the answer. This decision is wrong, and I urge the Trump administration to reverse course and ensure Georgia's local governments get the vital support they need. That would be Georgia's Senator John Ossoff. The article from the AJC continues, the denial follows efforts by other Georgia leaders to press the Trump administration to extend the aid application window. On Wednesday, the same day FEMA wrote Kemp to deny the governor's request, Georgia House Speaker John Burns and State Agriculture Commissioner Tyler Harper, both Republicans, also wrote a letter to Trump asking him to extend the deadline. Burns, a Newington Republican, and Harper also asked Trump to provide clarity on when outstanding federal disaster relief will be released to Georgians, particularly farmers. What? They don't have it yet? Is all these Doge cuts making you nervous, boys? Right now, the future is uncertain for far too many Georgia farmers, and without assistance, some of them will not make it through this growing season, the duo wrote. Burns' office issued a statement Friday saying, we look forward to continue working diligently with the Trump administration and the governor to deliver the resources our farmers, families, and communities need to recover as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, guys, mommy and daddy are at a stalemate. They've been fighting for quite a while. They don't get along, and you may not be getting the allowance or the extra money you need because of those expected expenses coming up due to a pretty powerful tropical storm that none of y'all want to attribute, by the way, to the glowing cause climate change. I know, and I've only got like 50 seconds anyway, so it's not like I'm going to go off on a tirade about that. I'm just kind of taking note here. And I live in this purplish red state where a lot of the state's politicians in this heavily gerrymandered state are suddenly finding themselves on the business end of the Trump stick that they were so quick to rally behind once he became the presumptive and then the eventual nominee, and then we got into general election season. Boys, you f*** around, and now you're finding out. Kemp in Munich with Politico. We have the interview, the full sit-down. We'll weave through that when the Ron Show returns on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, or wherever you podcast.
This is the Ron Show on America One Radio.
So I know a lot of folks were stunned, taken aback. European allies, leaders, the German Chancellor and Prime Minister both like aghast at the things that came out of J.D. Vance's mouth last week in Munich when he addressed our allies at this conference in Munich that he was attending. It's just, oh my God. First major speech of his career, and he's out there lambasting our allies at the Munich Security Conference, where he's telling them, and this doesn't surprise me, y'all, he's telling them, China, Russia, Putin, those aren't what you should be most fearful of. It's the threat from within. Liberalism. I mean, this comes right back to what I was starting the show with. My friend Michelle, my friend Dale. God, I can't tell you how many times we go to lunch together and pal around and make fun of the boss, the suits, corporate. And now there's this mindset where they look at liberalism or anybody that doesn't adhere to Trumpism, bend the knee, because even conservatives are in trouble. I mean, Liz Cheney's persona non grata, her dad too, the former vice president of the United States, persona non grata. In MAGA culture, they're enemies now. The enemy from within. We heard that rhetoric during the campaign, right? Why are we surprised that J.D. Vance has gone to Europe and had the audacity to say that kind of shit in their faces? I'm not stunned. So we're to believe that Vladimir Putin in Russia is not ours or our allies' greatest threat, but liberalism from within. J.D. Vance said, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. Really? Meanwhile, it appears that Elon Musk is working from within, speaking of the enemy from within, to dismantle not just agencies within our government, but discourse, the equal powers of our three branches of government, and withdrawing us from the world stage as leaders of it, the global community, to leave a vacuum so that China can step right in and become the cavalry, the knight on the white horse. And I already played for you last week the audio from Brian Tyler Cohen that sort of played out exactly why it is scuttling USAID is pulling us off the global stage as leaders, as that knight on the white horse that brings goodwill but derives us soft power. I gave you that audio last week. I'm going to give you a little recap of that real quick, and then I've got a little tidbit that sort of validates that from Forbes as well.
So the talking point being trotted out right now about Elon is that if you support getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, then you would support him and Doge's mission. And it makes sense on its face. In fact, that's a mission that I agree with. But here's why what Elon is doing undermines his own stated goals. Think about where he started. Agencies like USAID and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Let's start with USAID. Probably helpful to begin with this point. The USAID Inspector General was investigating how Musk's SpaceX Starlink satellite terminals that were purchased with agency funds were used in Ukraine's war over Russia. So Elon was under investigation by the very agency that he immediately moved to dismantle. Already reads as a pretty massive conflict of interest. But let's get into the practical implications of that move. USAID costs about 0.5% of the federal budget. It offers essential life-saving programs around the world like clean water and HIV prevention, already unto themselves worth it. But it's not just that. Just as importantly, from a geopolitical perspective, it is a tool for American soft power. When you hand out medicine or food with an American flag slapped on the label, you buy goodwill around the world. That is goodwill you can cash in on during conflicts, for favorable trade terms, for military or intelligence purposes, to build up alliances. So it's a win-win. It's doubly as beneficial. But by dismantling that agency, not only do we leave actual human beings hanging across the world, which will absolutely have real-life impacts on people who require medical care, who require water, who require food, but we also lose an inexpensive but effective tool for soft power. And guess what country is going to fill that void? China. They've got what's called a Belt and Road Initiative. That involves more than 150 countries and organizations. And when the U.S. moves out, by virtue of dismantling USAID, China moves in. That means that when it comes to trade, when it comes to alliances, when it comes to cooperation, when it comes to minerals, deference is paid not to the U.S., but to China. Does that seem like it's in our national interest? Not really, no. But you know whose interest that is in? Perhaps a billionaire who's invested a lot of time building up his portfolio in China? Tesla's Shanghai plant opened in 2019. It's the company's largest factory. It accounts for half of Tesla's global car production. So Elon has a vested interest in kowtowing to China. In other words, while dismantling USAID hurts America, it is a gift to the country that Elon stands to benefit from helping. And, by the way, it ends an investigation into his own possible corruption. Bad for America, good for Elon.
AKA the enemy from within. This also last week from Forbes.
Billionaire Elon Musk and his young Doge minions set off alarm bells this past week as they ripped through sensitive government databases and payment systems in a slash-and-burn effort to chop federal spending. That's a problem because he's not an elected official, many of his moves may prove to be fully illegal, let alone unconstitutional, and he's in a position to use his Doge power to directly benefit his companies. But that's not all. Profitability for Tesla, the largest source of his wealth, depends on one of America's biggest adversaries, China. Tesla and Musk enjoy a particularly cozy relationship with China's Communist Party leaders, receiving permission to own and operate its plant there without a local partner, a requirement for every other non-Chinese automaker.
Except that one.
And it was the only growing market for Tesla last year as sales in the US and Europe slumped. Critically, it was the opening of the Shanghai Gigafactory 5 years ago that reversed Tesla's financial fortunes after a decade of red ink. Since 2020, the plant's first year of operation, the company has remained consistently profitable. With its sales outlook murky, China's importance to Tesla and to Musk's personal wealth is even greater than before. And that raises Musk's need to please Chinese authorities, who could pressure him if Trump's policies are at odds with their priorities. Or as Vivek Ramaswamy, briefly Musk's Doge wingman, put it on his podcast in 2023, the billionaire will, quote, jump like a circus monkey when Xi Jinping calls in the hour of need. Musk, a frequent and aggressive critic of former President Joe Biden, is downright warm and fuzzy when it comes to comments directed toward China's leaders on X, his social media soapbox.
Wonder why.
Forbes recently reported that his wooing of Chinese leadership goes back a decade, starting with a 2015 visit in which he pitched CCP leaders on Tesla opening a plant there. During the approval process for the massive Shanghai plant, which got at least $1.4 billion in loans from state-affiliated banks, Musk worked closely with Li Qiang, the Communist Party official then governing Shanghai. These days, Li is China's number 2 behind Xi, serving as premier since 2023. Last month, a day before Trump's inauguration, Chinese Vice President Han Zheng was in Washington for a meeting with Musk, encouraging Tesla and other U.S. companies to, quote, make new and greater contributions to closer economic and trade ties between the nations, according to the state-run Xinhua news agency. Musk, often potty-mouthed and petulant on X, replied that Tesla was ready to do exactly that. Other major U.S. companies, such as Apple, also have close ties to China. Tesla's, though, is on a different level. Besides its special deal to wholly own its plant, a free pass on the joint venture requirement that Toyota, General Motors, and other automakers were saddled with, Tesla also benefits from cheaper Chinese labor, parts, and materials, and logistics costs that have made its Shanghai Gigafactory a money machine. Sam Fiorani, vice president of Auto Forecast Solutions, said, quote, "They have more production capacity there than they do in the rest of the world. It just defaults to being the single most important market. It outsells every other market." Unlike in the US, Chinese Tesla buyers will continue to receive government incentives, averaging around $2,000. A pollution crediting system modeled after California's zero-emission vehicle program also generates extra money for the company. Trump's administration has already rolled back tougher fuel economy standards, which could eliminate a big chunk of Tesla's lucrative sales of emissions credits to other automakers. But there's a price for the favor it's received. In a December 29th New York Times opinion piece that argued Musk is a national security risk, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Russell Honore wrote, quote, "China does not tend to give things away. The country's laws stipulate that the Communist Party can demand intelligence from any company doing business in China, in exchange for participating in the country's markets." He continued, quote, "This means Mr. Musk's business dealings in China could require him to hand over sensitive classified information, learned either through his business interests or his proximity to Trump."
My God, y'all. Elon Musk could very well be the literal Manchurian candidate. And y'all are just celebrating it and buying those ugly-ass Cybertrucks, sopping up your Starlink. I mean, this is, it's the kind of stuff that they write movies about, movies that I've seen. The Manchurian Candidate, actually, both of the classic and the interpretation that have, was it Lee Schreiber? Saw them both. And I feel like I'm living them now. I said that over the weekend to some friends. I feel like we're living through a movie we've seen before, and the foreshadowing part is what we're living through now. Home stretch of the Ron Show. Thank you for listening. You didn't hear Elon Musk mentioned as an enemy from within, as Vice President J.D. Vance is in Munich at the security conference, finger-wagging European leaders about their enemy from within. Liberalism. Being welcoming to immigrants, or they're tamping down on irresponsible communication from far-right fringies. I get it. People are uncomfortable about censorship, and there's a conversation to be had about whether or not the Googles, the YouTubes, the Metas, Facebook, Instagram, then Twitter, went too far with eliminating accounts who were hostile to vaccine rollouts or mask mandates, etc. There's a conversation to be had about that. I'm not gonna shirk away from that. That's not something I would shy away from. I happen to think that that's something that this again, another situation where the left can learn how to pivot in a way to put themselves on the offensive and their adversaries on the defensive. I would submit that, first of all of that sort of tamping down censorship from Facebook and Meta, Instagram, Twitter at the time, et cetera, and so on, led from a lack of leadership. And who was in charge then? That was the Trump administration, Trump 1.0. Donald Trump, to me, the greatest accomplishment of his presidency, his first presidency, is Operation Warp Speed. Go ahead, record that, use that if you want. That was his greatest accomplishment in his first presidency. Operation Warp Speed. It was the one thing in the face of a global pandemic that he did right. And I don't recall there being a whole lot of politicization to it, but maybe there was. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and retrace my steps for sure. Well, I wasn't on the air then, so I'm off the hook. But I don't remember there being a whole lot of pushback to that. No, we needed a vaccine response to a global pandemic. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans losing their lives. And in the face of that, he got rid of a lot of red tape and took down some firewalls and got some folks working together and got vaccines, ready to roll out. That was to me the one thing he did in his presidency, the first presidency, that he did abso-damn-lutely right. What he did after that, like not having a vaccine rollout, because he saw, and this is what he does, he plays to an audience. He plays to the bleachers. He saw the hesitancy. And America, the United States, we've had a growing vaccine hesitancy for a long time. Well, look at who the hell is head of HHS. We've had a growing vaccine hesitancy problem for quite a while, and a lot of that due to misinformation. Misinformation, by the way, that prior to COVID, the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the Twitter, X now, the Twitters, they didn't tamp it down. Then they only tamped it down in the face of a deadly pandemic. Again, mostly due to lack of leadership stepping in and trying to be the responsible voice in the face of a deadly pandemic. Talk about this all the time, how there were Republicans, Trump voters, MAGA country suffering the largest losses because their leader didn't exactly tell them, hey, listen, they didn't brag about it. Did not brag about going to get the vaccine. He did not brag about it. Did not have a huge press gathering or a photo op. Did not. Whatsoever. Instead was like peddling all kinds of bullshit. Hydrochloroquine, horse crap. And I know we joke about the bleach and but the sunlight. There were a lot of crazy concocted, well, what if we tried this? Dude, you're not a doctor. Listen to your doctors. Listen to your health professionals. They turned Dr. Anthony Fauci, into an enemy of the state in their minds. This all due to a lack of leadership from the administration. And so I surmise that Mark Zuckerberg et al., Jack at Twitter, Google, they had to tamp it down because there was no responsible voice of leadership from the White House sort of stepping in to say, guys, what are you talking about? We worked really hard. Trump could have taken full credit. I alone created these vaccines. They're going to be beautiful. They're beautiful vaccines. I took one. Ivanka took one. Look, we're all healthy, blah, blah. The masks seem to emasculate people, made them feel inferior, un-American, I guess, in full retreat. I don't really know what the vaccine or what the mask problem was. Discomfort, I get it, discomfort. They were not comfortable. No doubt about it. You won't, but there was just, God, I even remember this one video clip, this example that my buddy Austin Rhodes down in Augusta, Georgia, conservative radio, he did this example. He said, listen, if I cough into a piece of paper or something, if I cough into this fabric, it's not gonna go as far. He's absolutely right. That's exactly the point. Never mind the fact that, like, when we wore masks because of COVID, do I even need to mention the fact that the rate of flu transmission went down sharply? Like, there was no flu season. That's what I would argue. I would argue that we could say that the whole censorship gambit was much ado about a lack of leadership and some responsible governance from the White House to guide us through unprecedented times. And that's why we found ourselves getting zucked, why folks were losing Twitter accounts, this, that, and the other. I don't think it had anything to do with a sudden appetite for losing our First Amendment privileges, which, by the way, are not protected from incursions from Google or Meta, Truth Social even. By the way, the X platform is censoring. Did you know that? Mike Lukovich, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution cartoonist, apparently did a cartoon that Musk didn't like. It was targeted at Elon Musk. He didn't like it. It disappeared. He got zucked by Elon. In fact, he got this letter that read, "Hey, M. Lukovich AJC, we received a complaint about the content you posted on your page. After reviewing it, we found that it does not comply with our X community guidelines. The decision was made on February 16th, 2025. Decision ID 460-787-1638. To address this, please follow these steps. And then there's a list of steps. It's just a cartoon. It is literally just a cartoon of Elon Musk in blue jeans, a black jacket with Musk written on it, his black mega hat, and standing in front of stacks of cash, wads of bags of money, while there are three people holding bowls, and they say world's poorest. And Elon, the cartoon version of Elon, says, "No more free lunch." That's it. That's it. That is it. It's not him murdering a baby. It's not him dry humping a toddler. I mean, there's nothing about this that would lead you to believe that there even needs to be any censorship for it whatsoever. And yet, it got censored. Mike Lukovich, cartoonist, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Not a vaccine conspiracy theorist, not a big lie, junkie or anything like that. Just a cartoonist who happens to think that Elon Musk is easy to caricature as a billionaire who's got hordes of cash for himself, could be among one of the first trillionaires, by the way, in the next decade. Not a vaccine conspiracist. Nothing Mike Lukovich penned in that cartoon is a danger to human safety, societal well-being. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. But he got censored. And J.D. Vance has the audacity to go to Europe and finger-wag about their censorship, their immigration policies, and that Elon Musk is less of a threat than Greta Thunberg. What the fuck? I mean, just absolute batshit stupidity. And to do that in Europe, in Munich, of all freaking places. Just kind of stunning. I'm just kind of blown away at the audacity, the literal audacity. Because I happen to think that Elon Musk is our enemy from within, and J.D. Vance clearly does not, despite the fact that it's right there in front of him. Instead, Elon Musk is focusing on U.S. aid relief with all of these nonsensical claims that we spent $6 million on tourism in Egypt, when the reality is that was funding for education and economic development in North Sinai, not tourism. That we spent $1.5 million to promote workplace diversity in Serbia. The reality was that it was part of a broader economic initiative to increase job opportunities in Serbia, period. That we spent $47,000 on a transgender operation in Colombia. It was not a USAID grant at all. It was issued by the State Department, not USAID. The grant supported an arts program aimed at increasing representation in Colombia's opera scene. That's it. But you know how that works, right? What did Mark Twain say? A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on. There's a lot of that lying going on about what USAID does. Remember, it was condoms in Gaza. It turns out it was for HIV relief, stemming the spread of HIV in an African country, a continent ravaged by HIV. Part of PEPFAR, for crying out loud, which was a George W. Bush Republican from Texas program back when he was president. But that lie got halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on. J.D. Vance wants to talk about the enemy from within. The call is coming from inside the White House. When Elon's there anyway with his 3-year-old booger-picking toddler. Okay, I told you I was going to get to Governor Brian Kemp in Munich. I will do that tomorrow, promise you. That's going to do it for today's Ron Show. We replay this 5 p.m., 9 a.m., 5 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Show notes, as always, at ronshowatl.com. Have yourselves a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.